Okay, we're doing it now. This is the 7th time we've tried to open it, and this is the opening that we're going to do. So, hello everyone, my name is Jared. Welcome to the Triple J Studios podcast, and today I'm welcoming my mom.
Hi!
Hi! Now, we just recently got back from watching the Muppet movie from 1979, and before we even begin, what's your connection to the Muppets? Because I have very limited background on all of that, but you essentially grew up with that in your childhood.
I grew up every Wednesday night watching the Muppets. It was a half-hour show. My whole family would watch it together. It was just a nice bonding moment.
Alright, and did you watch it when it came out in the film, in the theater, or did you watch it on VHS?
We actually went to a drive-in theater back then. We didn't do many theaters. But at Friday nights we would do a double feature on a drive-in.
That's good. I'm really just used to the Muppet from 2011 and Muppets Most Wanted from 2014. So to see the first ever film that was made by Jim Henson and the Muppet production was very interesting, and there were a lot of there was a new aspect to the Muppets that I hadn't seen before, in a sense.
Yes, especially this was the first one that you could see the feet. Back then, even in the half-hour show, we didn't have that. They had a lot of close-ups at time, but you never got to see them really walk anywhere. As we'll talk about riding the bike as well, that was a new technique that Jim Henson had started.
Mm-hmm. So I think, that actually segues right into exactly where I wanted to go. So this was, of course, a Jim Henson production, but it was directed by Jim's Folly. It was written by Jack Burns and Jerry Joel. The music was done by Kenneth Asher and Paul Williams, which, again, as many of you already know, I'm in love with almost every soundtrack of every film. So, of course, we're going to get into that. And it was produced by ITC Entertainment and Henson Associates. One thing I also noticed was that in the UK, it's 97 minutes long, but in America, it's only 95 minutes long. So we'll be doing some research in the background to see where those extra 2 minutes were, but overall, I don't think it was much.
And just a reminder, it was in 1979 it came out.
Yes, so with a budget of $8 million, it received $76.6 million at the box office. Not bad. Almost 10 times the amount that it put in. And then it is starring a whole lot of different guest stars in the background, featuring Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Austin Pendleton, Mel Brooks, Bob Hope, Orson Welles, Paul Williams, Telly Savalas, Richard Pryor, and Steve Martin, just to name a couple of them. I only knew 2 or 3 from visual, but from the different voices, because we watched you as a family, you and Dad both laughed as soon as you saw one of them walk out. So was that similar to the show as well?
It was. The Muppets had a lot of stars, actually. Every week they would have a new star. And the stars we saw in the movie were, at that time, very well known. Bob Hope was one of them. Steve Martin was in there. Those were some of the rising actors that we had at the time as well.
Right. So it was very interesting to see all of these different guest star roles up there. Now, probably the best place to start is the beginning. So we start off with Kermit. He's going through all of the the production and talking to the background characters that we don't really see in the movie, but like Sam the Eagle. I noticed he was there, but didn't really see him a lot to him. So there were all of these different characters, but eventually he does start the film, and we're introduced to Kermit once again in a Florida swamp. I didn't know if it was Florida or Missouri.
I'm not really sure there. I know that was one of his famous songs, The Rainbow Connection, that came in the beginning. Did you know how they filmed it?
Mm-mm.
They actually had Jim Henson. He had to get underneath the water, and he built a special suit for him so that he could actually have Kermit perform at the same time.
So he was under the water and the log at that point, because this is, as you previously mentioned, this is the first time in, I guess you could call it Muppet history, that you actually do see legs.
Actually, it was with any of the puppets that you got to
All
see
of
the
the
legs.
Muppets, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So originally I thought it was just like in the log or it was almost robotic, but
He was underneath, and he actually had an air hose, and he was able to move Kermit as well as to monitor everything that was going on as well. It took him 5 days to perform the scene.
Just that one scene?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, if that doesn't show how dedicated Jim Henson is to his work, then I don't know what does. So, we'll assume it's Florida because he's going across country.
True.
So, we'll say it's Florida. And as you said, he was singing Rainbow Connection, which made the #1, I want to say, Billboard?
It might have. I know that with the children's songs, it came out and it actually scored something. We've got to look that one up. But it was one of the tops in 1979.
Right. And was this a purely Muppet song, or was this just one that he did a voiceover for?
I don't believe so. Let me look that up. I want to say Judy Garland sang it, but I'm not sure she sang it first.
But yeah, I'm not really sure if it did make #1 Billboard or not. But either way, it's during this point when he's singing, he just finished the song, and we get introduced to Bernie, who's a talent agent who encourages Kermit and says, "You gotta go into the showbiz in Hollywood." And he's going, "You're gonna make millions of people happy." Which I thought was a really nice line. Instead of going, "Oh, you'll make millions of dollars," it does show that not everyone in Hollywood, not that I'm saying it is, but not everyone in Hollywood is all about the money.
True, they're not. I mean, they want to be, but some just do it for fun, I guess.
Sound like you're a little back and forth on Hollywood.
Well, back then, that was the big dream, the Hollywood sign. Everybody went out there to make millions.
True, but in this movie, in Kermit's sense, he is in it purely just to make people happy, and so is Bernie. He's just trying to find entertainers who can make people happy and laugh, which, with like my short films, as you know, I don't make a cent off of any of it. I've lost over hundreds of dollars making them with like camera and lighting equipment, but I don't care because I want to make those people happy.
Yeah.
So I have no shame telling everyone that.
Now, backing up on the Rainbow Connection, it actually was nominated for a Best Original Song that year.
Did it win?
And no, it didn't, but he did get to sing it with Judy Garland, so I knew there was something. And they did that on the...
Kermit did?
Yeah, Kermit did.
Okay. Sure.
Kermit got to sing with a lot of people on The Muppet Show.
Oh, on The Muppet Show?
Yeah, on The Muppet Show.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if that was like at the Oscars or something.
No,
okay.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen that. So Kermit decides, all right, I'm going to pack my bags, I'm going to start going. But this is also the point of the story when he's riding his bike. And we talked about that, or you mentioned that, of the bike moving. Did you know how they shot that as well?
Yeah, they did. They put cranes overhead and put a scaffolding up there. And that way they could get the actual frog's legs were connected to the bicycle pedals. And then it went at the same time Jim Henson could do every movement on the top of it.
Okay, so they just did it from above. And
yeah, that's how he got to hop up. Because remember, he hopped in the truck.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes more sense. I figured it was almost animatronic.
No,
sense,
back
but,
then we really didn't have a lot of animatronics. I mean, Disney.
Well, nowadays it almost be CGI because no one could think of that. But
yeah, it would have.
But at the time, very innovative. So he starts riding his bike, and this is when we start to see French fried frog legs, the restaurant, and he's a little sickened.
Actually, when you live in Florida, that was something that was a delicacy down here. And
so,
actually, where we lived in Bradenton, that had a place that we had the frog's legs. So that was a delicacy.
So it must have been Florida then.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So he starts going, and then he jumps straight up and lands on, I guess, the road flattener?
Yes.
I'm not sure what you'd call it.
Steamroller.
Steamroller, sure. I like road flattener better. And we cut to the next scene where we're introduced to Fozzie in a very Western and beat-em-up type of bar. He's not doing too well, and he starts like causing a whole ruckus in the entire bar where they're flying around. And this is, I want to say, the first time, because you've shown me some episodes of The Muppet Show, this is almost the first time where the puppets are beaten up brutally.
Beaten up, thrown.
Into a
first
piano.
time that you saw someone holding the puppets?
Yeah.
That wasn't something you saw.
Which, was that more of because it was on television, so it was more like
Probably.
not risque, but more of like just not what you do, I think.
They didn't really fight like that in the Muppets.
No, so to see this was very eye-opening and very strange, but still, they still get a kick out of it, and they all go upstairs saying there's drinks on the house. And then Fozzie agrees to go with Kermit to Hollywood, to California. And this is when we get into Fozzie's 1951 Studebaker, which, I don't know, that's just a fun name to say. And
They actually had 2 for the show.
They had 2?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the show or for the film?
For the film, they had to have 2 of them because one had to be special so that they could actually drive it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And the other?
I think it was just a backup.
Oh, okay.
They had to do one because remember they painted it.
That's true.
And that was typical of that time too.
Yeah, which we'll get into that later. So Fozzie agrees to go, and this is when Hopper returns to Kermit and goes, "Hey, I'd like you to be in one of my frog commercials for the Frog Legs," which is kind of odd in a sense of that he recorded the entire commercial and then presented it to Kermit. It seemed very odd in a sense of almost like if someone went like, "Hey there, human, I'm going to allow you to serve fingers," or whatever. Just very, very odd, very...
Well, it's kind of like the Chick-fil-A now.
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense, you know.
Yeah. But aren't they cows that sell those?
Yeah, but that's why.
That's true.
Yeah, because they don't want with the burgers. Thinking of the Studebaker, though, Frank Oz had to drive it at the same time. So that's why they had to take the inside out so he could actually be in there and drive at the same time.
So he was driving, puppeteering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sure. Whatever works. It turned out very well. So, of course, Kermit declines the offer. They leave. And this is when we get into my favorite song of... shoot, what's the name? You get the Rainbow Connection and then Moving Right Along, which is one of those... It's a pure road trip song in a sense that's just upbeat, ready to go. The music is very... It has the banjo of Kermit, but also has all of this background information. And, of course, there's puns all the way with a fork in the road. You got Big Bird walking across the street, which someone had to explain to me that Sesame Street and the Muppets were the same company. So apologies on my part. I'm not a huge Muppet fan. And then they keep going, and I love this song. And then we get to the most disappointing parts of the film that I'm not a huge fan of, which is when they pull into the church, and then we meet Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
No, I never really liked...
They were... I liked their energy, and couldn't understand a word they were saying.
True.
But like when they're talking normally, when they're singing though, it's very raspy, very fast, very... One of the lines that I didn't like was, anyone can do it, if we can do it, you can do it. They rhymed it with it.
And they always had Animal on a Leash.
Yeah.
And it was...
Always.
Always.
It wasn't like they let him go or anything.
Yeah, well, in the end, but we'll figure that out.
Kind of. He was still on a leash.
Gone.
When he grew?
Yeah.
No, his leash was still on. Which I thought was... We'll get into
that.
So they sing the song, and this is when they all decide, okay, we're going to... No,
they paint the car.
They paint the car, but they also break the fourth wall a lot during this scene, which is the only redeeming part, in my opinion, about it. You have mixed feelings about that, Alex.
No.
Okay, sure. Either way, they're handed a script, right? And then they read through the exact same scene all the way up. I felt like that was a good joke executed, but it was a little too long. Like, it kind of overstayed its welcome for a solid minute.
And before this, we forgot to mention that this whole thing takes place as everyone's watching the film. So the Muppet movie is actually the film in front of the Muppets. And Kermit's putting this on, and it's the first time we see the Muppets actually look at us and address us.
Which was weird.
As well. And that was interesting when Fuzzy turned and knew we were there, too. And it's...
Fuzzy? Fozzie?
Fuzzy. I called him Fuzzy too much as a kid, I guess. But Fozzie would talk to the people, and that was unusual back then.
Yeah, so it was they like to look straight down the camera. In fact, Fonzie even apologizes to the audience.
Which is one thing we're never supposed to do.
Yeah, it was like, sorry? So yes, so as you say, they do the entire car. They paint it with the worst song, and then they go through
Well, it's not the worst song. That was the typical 70s.
Right, that was their
painting.
vibe.
That was their vibe.
I don't like it. And then they start driving, and then this is when we meet Gonzo.
The best, and the chickens. That was the best.
But was he a plumber in the show? Because that's what they made him look almost like. I'd have to rewatch it because I thought he was like a daredevil in a sense.
He is a daredevil. He was the human daredevil that would be shot out of the cannon.
Yeah, he was the great Gonzo,
yeah,
right?
And it always
Amazing
started the
Gonzo.
show somehow. Sometimes
It started the show.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was the one that gets shot out of a cannon or anything like that.
Right. So, and he had the chicken, whose name is Camilla.
He had a lot of chickens, but only in this one, Camilla.
But his girlfriend was Camilla the chicken. Is Gonzo a bird?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know what he was.
Yes.
Okay. So they start going.
And he had singing chickens.
That's true.
Yes.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay.
Because he wanted to.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. I mean, Disney did weirder things, but okay. He made it.
And this chicken, they don't fly the birds, they drive. That's why he had the car.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have the car because of that. He was a plumber. He's a plumber because he has the entire like a water faucet on top of his car, and he like all of that. But either way, Kermit's car and Gonzo's car are about to crash, and then we cut, and then we see that Gonzo's car has landed upside down on top of Kermit's.
Miraculously.
Because Hollywood. And then Gonzo
and without
goes,
a scratch.
Right. And Gonzo goes, "You call that a miss?" So they start going. And then this is when he decides to just join them randomly because I guess he stole his car, technically. So they start going, and then they get to a county fair where they're hosting a little beauty pageant. And Miss Piggy has won first prize, and this is where we're introduced to her. And then we are given an entire whole song.
I never liked Miss Piggy.
No. I thought she was weird.
She sang too much.
She sung in the show?
All the time. She always wanted to sing.
Okay, yeah, I didn't like her singing.
No.
I get that the joke was, I guess, to be bad?
No, I think she wanted to be good.
No.
The singing.
That
ending
note.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that ending note kept going, and it's like, oh. And then it just, a little off. I think that was kind of the joke, is that she can't sing. It's a cop-out to me. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of it. But, they keep going, and then she wins. We go through that entire song, and
That was long.
And then Gonzo decides to buy a whole bunch of balloons for Camilla the chicken. And he starts to fly away up into the sky, almost like Up.
Almost.
The Disney film, except Gonzo being a house. Yeah. And then he starts flying, and that was probably, that and the bike scene, I think, are the two most impressive scenes from the film. In the sense that the way it was executed, the way it was thought out.
Well, and the log. I mean, that was amazing to see.
The log as well.
And moving. That was the best to me.
That was very well done as well. So there were a whole lot of technological achievements done by this film.
Especially at that time, because I know we had Disney going on, but Disney was doing more into cartoons.
Right, Disney wasn't in the whole...
They weren't doing this. I mean, we opened the park, but it was different.
Yeah, Disney was more into, like, it was still, not like cash grab like bad, but cash grab in the sense of, like, we are producing cartoons because we are in animation studios. Nowadays, that can be changed to we're a live action, kind of.
Right, and they had both parks open, too.
They had both parks as well. So they were still, in fact, Disney World would have been open for 8 years by now.
Mm-hmm.
So for this amount of technology to be pushing at this time, think about it, you get to back then when it's like, no way we can see Kermit's feet, to now being, no way we're almost at Mars. It's very quick in the way how technology is going. But Gonzo's up in the sky, he's got all these balloons, and he does not have a care in the world. He's just floating around.
He never did.
ever? Like, was he the one that was like, put me in the cannon, or was
he wanted to go in the cannon. He even had the little hat on and the helmet.
So he was full on with this cannon idea.
He used to break everything.
Okay. So they get all the way up, and they're all happy, and then eventually we see the return of Hopper, who I just now realized after saying that kind of reminds me of A Bug's Life. Kind of. Just
a little bit.
A little, because I'm relating
At the time, they were different people. Henson was not owned by Disney.
No. And Pixar, the Bug's Life wasn't even a thing yet. No. So that was very, I don't know. Maybe there is something there. But either way, Hopper is, for the first time, he's taking more drastic measures and now has a shotgun and decides, I'm going to shoot the tires. Fonzie, with his beautiful driving skills, ducks, hits a billboard, a pie flings from the billboard, hits the car, he aims up, shoots the balloons, Gonzo falls, hits the top of the car, and they drive away. Who thought of that? And what does who thought of that? I know probably the writers and Jim Henson's himself, but it's still just an incredible scene to play out.
You gotta remember, back then was so much slapstick.
That's true.
So a pie in the face was hysterical.
Yeah.
And you'd end with things like that. That's why we saw a lot of that with Fuzzy and everything going forward with his jokes. That was what we had back then.
That's true. Yeah, so slapstick was more relevant. I'd say it's still relevant now.
It is, but back then with Steve Martin, he was just starting
Steve
out.
Martin.
You know, that was something we had back then.
Who were getting up to his scene, and I loved his cameo.
You had Bob Hope too.
That's true. Yeah, so all of these different actors coming together into one. It's almost, I haven't seen the film, but I have seen the trailer because of my film class. Shout out Mr. Patterson. But it's a mad world or something like that. Not in the sense, I don't know what the film's about, but all of these stars coming together and out of retirement.
Well, they weren't out of retirement.
Not that they were.
We had Dom DeLuise that was just doing films then too.
But just in the sense that all of these creative minds are coming together and portraying these characters as they want to.
Everybody wanted to be on the Muppet Show. It was a big draw.
So it's almost like Saturday Night Live. If you made it onto the Muppet Show...
For families.
Right. But like, if you made it to the Muppet Show, you made it.
And we knew about it. Like, they would start advertising it real early so everybody would get excited to watch it.
Okay. Was there any reason, I don't know, just... Did it start to die out? Because it did cancel.
It did. I think it just changed.
Just the times changed, they didn't. Okay, yeah. Which was very evident, especially when, I don't know if you remember the ABC Muppet Show that they had, and it was like all business, and it was a talk show instead. Yeah. That was a bit, it was a way different take.
It was.
And I think they were trying something, and it did not work. But returning back to the film, Miss Piggy and Kermit, they decided that they go on a little date. And it's adorable, and it's cute. Not really. Because we have Steve Martin. And Steve Martin shows up, and he's all sarcastic and witty, and it was just great all around. Because it's exactly the way that I think people would react to, great, I'm serving a pig and a frog puppets, 95-cent Idaho #1 best wine.
With a straw.
With two straws.
2 straws.
So... pours it out, and he's sarcastic the entire time. It's great. Miss Piggy then abruptly leaves.
And before you do that, don't forget she drinks her wine, which is something, too, that you didn't see them do.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Alcohol and wine being in a kid's film. Yeah.
And just like earlier, the dog...
Ralph?
Yeah, he talked about having a beer before bed.
Yes, which I wanted to talk about. By the way, are you aware of something called the Hays Code?
No.
Okay, so back in the 40s, during all that, like King Kong, all of those types of films, the Hays Code was essentially, hey, these are rules of things that you are not allowed to put in films. If your film is not approved by the Hays Code, it cannot go into major production. So, for instance, you can have any sexual undertones at all. You can have alcohol. You can have like crazy little rules, like you couldn't talk about certain things. So like Women of the Night or any of that, no go. You can't talk about... You really couldn't talk about relationships at all. So to include wine, my first instinct back was to the Hays Code, and this movie wouldn't be approved. They would probably change that to like sparkling water.
And talking
something.
about beer.
Yes, that would probably be changed to like drinking water and eating dog food. I don't know. How do you spell Ralph, by the way, and Ralph the dog?
Just like it sounds.
Rowlf?
Yeah, Ralph.
Perfect. Okay. That's a very odd way of doing it, but c'est la vie. But Kermit does meet up with Ralph the dog, and they start singing a very interesting song about women and relationships and all of that. Again, I don't think they didn't talk about that in the Muppet Show.
No.
So I did like the song. It was very catchy in a sense, but at the same point, I still in the back of my head was like, why is this in a children's film in the 70s?
Well, you got to remember, you want the parents to go to it too. Something had to be a little different.
Right. Which, okay.
It was a little different.
It was very different.
That's why I think all the slapstick humor, not all the children would get that.
No, and I mean, we still see that now. Like in Wreck-It Ralph, in Ralph Breaks the Internet, yes, you had a lot of different slapstick and humor that many children and teens might get, but at the same point, you still had that story and different...
For the younger kids.
Right, and you had that, like, this is a story mainly about two friends type of thing. So, very interesting. But it turns out Miss Piggy actually wasn't... She didn't just leave. She was actually kidnapped by Hopper himself. And he says, you need to find us. And they do. Within
minutes.
Seconds.
Pretty much.
Kermit walks out, and then there's 6 gunmen. And he goes, are you the ones I'm supposed to meet? And then they're taken down into a sort of barn, I guess you would call it. There was a lot of hay.
Tied up so fast you didn't even see it.
Oh, it was incredible. I think they're the real heroes of nodding. But either way, they meet up again, and it's very, very odd in the sense that... Who did you say the doctor was that walked in? I can't remember his name. But either way, he was playing a German scientist, and he brings it in and he says... yes, this machine will turn Kermit into a lifeless frog who will only serve you and everyone else all of these frog legs. And of course, Kermit's panicking and he's put into the machine and it looks like all hope is lost. But wait, what's this? Miss Piggy knows karate?
She's known karate. She just let it out then.
Was that a thing in the show too?
Yes, when she got mad.
Can we watch the show tonight just so that I can do like a cross-reference so that people won't yell at me?
Mel Brooks. With
that was
Professor
Mel
Max.
Brooks.
And he was hired by Doc Hop.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it was
he was
Mel
hired
Brooks.
by them. But that was Mel Brooks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that because of that type of humor. I wonder if he added anything to the script. Because, I mean, Dad made a comment saying that a lot of this humor was very slapstick-esque.
It was, and I think some of them, even the Dom DeLuise, had his own probably version. I'm sure they added each other's a little bit.
Maybe. I think everyone probably came together and added this, which just makes it way better than I anticipated it to be. So, of course, because of miraculous timing, Miss Piggy beats up all the different guardsmen.
She was protecting the frog. I mean, her love was the frog, so she would get jealous, and every time she got jealous, she would have karate.
Can I reestablish something?
Yes?
It has been one day.
Not even.
Kermit has left. No, Kermit left, met Fonzie. The next day, they sing the good song of Moving Right Along, and then they go through that entire process to where we are now.
Actually, and going back to that, remember Fuzzy's thing at the church?
Fonzie. Not Fonzie.
His first thing
okay.
was that he goes, and it's only been one day, and he falls asleep and he wakes
does.
up. Yes, he does.
See, even Fuzzy,
the bear.
The bear is with me on this one and saying that time is a very odd thing in movies. But where were we? Yeah. So Miss Piggy gets a phone call right then and there and leaves. Just says goodbye and then walks out. Do we ever get explained what that was? Or is that just to show that Hollywood is a very
No,
different
she got
place?
called for an acting. It was a commercial.
Right, but then she's seen on the side of the road hitchhiking, and then like
It's
2 minutes
she
later.
got booted out. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how it was back then.
Okay, so that was to show
yeah.
that. So that was for the adults as
Exactly.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're driving again, and by the way, we should mention they're now. Fozzie is now in a 1946 Ford Woody station wagon. It's not a bad car. And they keep driving, and then they break down in the middle of the desert. No, I feel so terrible about this. I mean, it was all right. I mean, it didn't just feel like there was any danger or anything in regards to them crashing, because we don't know where they are. I looked it up. They're in New Mexico, but it's also in the sense of their car crashes.
They were giving up. It was part of life. I mean,
Right.
That was what they did. People that tried to get to Hollywood, and then they're like,
maybe this
we
isn't
didn't
it.
make it. And
Yes, and during this part, we get another song sung by Gonzo. Very nice song. Nothing really much to say about
nothing
that.
really much, no.
Great camera angles. I like that.
And the second Kermit.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Was
Alter ego.
Alter ego. Was this the first time that you kind of had Kermit contemplating with himself?
I'm not sure, but I think so. I don't remember seeing two Kermits. Just the baby Kermit.
Was that darker green one in the beginning?
Which is never explained. Yes.
Okay, I didn't get him.
No. He came on later.
Okay. So, again, very odd. He's contemplating with himself about, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be giving up?
We all contemplate. This time you just saw himself.
Right. It's
Normally we do it without.
Well, right. It's just very odd to see it
Live.
Yeah.
With the second frog.
Mm-hmm. Instead of just like in his head, which I thought it was, and then you just see him in the background. And he just disappears. Simple as that. Nothing really much to say. But during this, we also they return the Electric Mayhem Band.
Your favorite.
My
in
favorite,
a bus.
My
Typical,
favorite.
we
Your
have buses.
favorite.
Yeah. And the animal.
And animal. And
they had to take him out for a walk.
Dr. Tooth. They're all great. But they all come back to sing the exact same song. So I think they only have one song.
Pretty much.
And they all decide, all right, let's go and start driving to Hollywood. We still got time. And then this is when the henchman guy, the side guy of Hopper comes up, pulls over the bus and says, look, there is a frog killer who is set to kill you. And Kermit goes, that's it, I've had enough. Stop at the next town, tell him we'll meet him there. And he does. And this is also when we're finally meted to Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and his assistant Beaker in a ghost town of all places. These people are in the weirdest places.
And the most craziest on the Muppet Show. Things would just explode.
Yes, which in this case it did. It was a barrel that spins and is spewing.
No, sometimes it really explodes.
Oh, well then. Well, in this case it didn't, thankfully. But this is also when Dr. Honeydew goes, also here's some instant growth pills. Just, it grows anything, just really big. So we'll leave it there as kind of like, this is a plot device, look. And sure enough, it is later. But Kermit walks back out. He's got the cowboy boots. He's got the cowboy hat. And he's got this renewed optimism. He's all set to go. And everyone realizes that Max and Hopper, who is the side guy, they hired the assassin, whose name is Snake Walker, to kill Kermit. And he walks back out, and he stands right there, and he's talking all about friendship and hope, and how he's got dreams. And then this is when Kermit goes, all right, if you don't have it deep down within you to let me live my dream, then kill me. And I'm like, huh.
And at that point, in most movies, it would have been like, oh, yay.
No, he decides, all right, kill him. But again, I think this is a lot of firsts for the Muppets in this case. Has a Muppet ever gone, kill me?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
Especially on just public broadcasting. So, and
so many guns.
Movie, so many guns, which is another Hays Code. You weren't allowed to have so many guns. But still, it was very odd to see all of these different things. But sure enough, as the plot device happens from Dr. Honeydew, Animal, of course, eats some of the growth pills and grows humongously and destroys the entire building and is still wearing the collar. So my guess is that anything grows, including the collar. I thought it would have been nice if he broke free from the collar.
Yeah, that would have been good.
But I don't know.
I would have been good too if it stayed that size. Because he suddenly shrinks.
That would choke him. Would it?
No, but he suddenly shrinks like as fast as
Oh,
he grew.
like he... Okay, I thought you meant the collar. I'm like,
no.
what are you trying to say about animal? But yes, you were right.
But he gets up and goes straight back down.
Yeah, and we don't even see like him go back down. He's just... There he is. So finally they arrive back at Hollywood and they're all set to go. They burst into the door and they're ready to audition. And this is when we see the only person who is good for this job, Orson Welles, which was kind of odd in a sense to just see him. He has one line, and it's just
he never said a lot. Yeah.
No, which again, that was just his character.
That was his character.
And
he was always smoking again.
Again, he smoked in this one. Odd, not Hays Code approved. So, but again, they're all really happy, and this is when Kermit finally is like, "I did it." And we get our second.
And you can tell that because he actually is the only one that they're on.
Yes, everyone else
fuzz everybody out.
Everyone else is jumping, going like, we did it. And Kermit is just in disbelief that he did it. So they start getting ready to, I guess, do a mini version of the Muppet movie, if you want to call it. So, very interesting in the sense that he finally did it, and the first thing he's going to do is tell the world his story of how he made it. And they're setting everything up, and we get a little background on, or not a background. What is it when a song comes back? A reprise. Reprise of the
Rainbow Connection.
Except
with their own words.
With their own words, it's a much more happy song.
Well, it's not part of what they did.
Exactly, but not like the first one was rainbows are a vision, but only an illusion. That line stuck with me in a sense of like, huh. But to hear this one, it's like it's all about the friends you make and how you can all share the same dream. Yes. And of course it goes through the entire thing we just talked about really quick. And then
as usual,
everything falls.
Because of
Gonzo?
Yes.
Gonzo
he would destroy everything. So again, the balloons go up and
he hits the rainbow and everything falls comes down. It hits a light, something explodes up, and then the roof just has a hole in it.
And again, because of that, we need something really good to happen, so the rainbow comes
through
down.
And it's the Rainbow Connection. And then we pan out to every single character that is there, which I have a list right here of every character. I'm not going to read them all, but it does have like different things that they're talking about. Wow. They have, of course, they have the Muppets. They have characters from Sesame Street. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is there.
The best Christmas. There were over 250 Muppets that day.
And the Lane of Gorch segment from Saturday Night Live, they're the ones that sing the Rainbow Connection reprise, which, all right. I have to look back in that, but I did see Big Bird and Bernie and Ernie in there. Which
who?
Bernie and Ernie.
Bernie and Ernie?
Isn't that their names? Like
Bert
and Ernie. Which
you did not grow up on Sesame Street.
No, I didn't.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You were the one that that could have changed that, but either way, they're all there and they're all singing, and then the Rainbow Connection hits them. Or doesn't hit them, but the rainbow lands on top of them. And then bursting through the scene to remind audiences that you're watching this movie with the Muppets as well, we get Sweetsum? Is that his name? The big Jack Jaw? I don't know. The big guy that's actually just a guy in a suit. I don't know his name.
I don't know his name. I'm starting to laugh too much with you.
I don't know. But either way,
it's Sweetums.
Sweetums.
Sorry.
That's his name? Okay.
Yes.
So Sweetums runs back in and then...
Because they forgot to get him at the car lot.
Because they forgot to pick him up at the car lot when they switched it out for the other car, the 1946 Ford.
Oh, before we forget, Tim Burton was in this film.
Tim Burton was also in this film as a puppeteer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In the final shot only.
Final shot only.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very nice. And then during the credits, at the very end, Animal goes, go home, and then he goes, bye, and then falls, and then it just ends. It's very simple.
It's a very simple movie.
And that is the Muppet movie, which for many listeners, you're going to be realizing that only took about 40 minutes to go through. It's because it's a really quick movie, and there's a lot of, not filler, but it's more of you just have to watch it, and you'll realize why we just go over it, because the jokes would take too long to explain. It's very, not convoluted, but there's a lot of returning jokes that keep coming back. But overall, this is the point where we rate the movie. So
Now,
out of 10 rainbows.
Oh, I like that. I like rainbows.
How many? So in the previous one, as some of you may have heard, we rated it out of 10 coffee cups. So we had, like for instance, I gave the movie 8 coffee cups, while David and Anthony gave it, I think, like 8 coffee cups and an espresso for 8.5. So however you want to take rainbow colors, go with that. But out of 10 rainbow colors, how many rainbow colors would you give the Muppet movie from 1979?
Before we go there, you didn't know them back then, needless to say. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, they both commented on this film, giving it a 3.5 out of 4. Which back then we didn't really say. They did, because it was the first time they had seen something like this. Roger loved the feet.
Okay.
So,
so did
it
Hopper.
was, yeah, I know, but it was fascinating back then. It was a lot of wit. It was a lot of fun stuff going on in the films as well, adults and children. So there was a lot of new things going on. I would probably give it an 8.5. Back then, it was one of my childhood memories.
So 8.5
just
rainbows.
Released. Once Disney took it over, they released it again.
Do you know when Disney took that over?
Oh, I don't. I know they just put out the 35th?
By the way, I should mention that the film, as of now, recording, holds an 88% approval on Rotten Tomatoes and 8 out of 10 on average for many fans. So, still very well done for how it's doing. But either way, what were you saying about what did the other person say?
Again, it was mostly about the technology that they used it then, with the feet. It was different. And I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah. We should also mention that on April 14th, 1980 was the Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Original Song and Best Adaptation Score. It was nominated. The first award that it actually won was from the Grammy Awards on February 27th, 1980, when it won the Best Album for Children. And on July 26th of 1980 as well, on the Saturn Awards, it won the Best Fantasy Film.
And don't forget, in 2009, it was also inducted into the Library of Congress.
Yes.
Because the National Film Registry.
Mm-hmm. To just put that into perspective of when was that inducted?
2009.
2009. To put that into perspective, Cinderella came out in 1950, the Disney classic. That only got in last year.
Oh, wow.
So that is an impressive feat, because it needs to be cultural, historical, or technologically important in film history. So for this, I'd probably classify it as technical. Just technology, the study of technology. But just the technological advancements that this film really made. It's a ridiculous film. It's
and
all
when you
over
think
the
of
place.
Jim Henson, that's what he did. I mean,
You
I
think
know
of
going
Muppets.
to Emmett Otter, but I showed you how that was all stop motion. And when you really see
It
how
wasn't
that
stop
was,
motion.
a lot of it was stop motion
Was it?
at the end, remember?
At the end,
Yeah,
yes.
at the end.
But I thought it was still puppets.
Yes, small.
Yes, it was, they were very small. I remember the bloopers. They were like table size. But
They were.
yes, so it was very, very interesting in that it was all over the place. It still told a really well story. You gave it an
8.5 rainbows.
8.5 rainbows. For me, I thought that the beginning was very excellently done. I thought it was very well done. I believe this was not targeted towards people who have not seen the Muppet movie before. Obviously, because it's the origin story of it, which is for anything. It's like if you're a fan of Batman, you shouldn't start with the origin story. You should start with getting to understand the character. So, again, that's just in general. I don't know if Batman has an origin story. But it's still in the sense that I still enjoyed it, not having seen a whole lot of Muppet merchandise and all of this different media. So for me, I would give it an 8, which is 8 rainbows, which is still very high for me. I think the only thing that would get it that 9 is to get a different, get a better villain. I felt like he wasn't the best in the sense that he was there, but more in the sense that he was a push factor of like, okay, we're going to Hollywood, but now we're being chased by someone. Just have them go. It shouldn't really be because this guy is going and going. I understand you needed a climax. Have the climax be that they're rushing to the room and it's the final 2 seconds. Cliche, but you don't have a villain.
And getting rid of Miss Piggy singing.
That too. That would get it an 11. So you get a full spectrum of the colors. But either way, that about does it for the Muppet movie of 1979. That was a very odd journey. We should also mention we recorded this about like 20 minutes after seeing the film. So, I liked it.
You ready to watch the next one? The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah, there's the Muppets Take Manhattan.
1981.
1981. That's probably what we'll go watch right after we see the Muppet show. So, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up and call it a show?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, and thank you all for listening, and we hope to see you next time. See you later.
Bye.